Good morning, kids. Today we are going to learn the lesson named Without Glasses. It was written by Robert Lynd. Through this story, author tried to share his experience of how his life disturbed after his spectacles broken down unintentionally by an elder man of his family named Potter. So, let's start reading the lesson along with its explanation. I was staying in the country recently when a well-meaning hand engaged in dusting my bedroom swept my glasses off the mantelpiece where I had placed them for safety. The culprit, an elderly man named Potter, his face full of kind-hearted misery, brought the fragments to the lunch table, holding them at first behind his back and saying, I have a confession to make. My hostess offered to do her best to mend the glasses temporarily with sticking plaster, and she did her best. That is the best that can be said for her effort. So, the time when author's glasses are or spectacles broken down, at that time he stayed in an area outside the town or cities, and it happened unintentionally by an elder man named Potter during dusting of author's bedroom. So what Potter do? He just brought those separated parts of the spectacles to the lunch table where the author was taking his lunch and make confession. As it is very difficult for the author to see without glasses, so the author's hostess temporarily mend his spectacles with sticking plasters. Okay, now come to the next one. I tried to read with the bandaged spectacles, but I had never read long till I was aware of a certain sagging of the frame on the bridge of the nose, and the whole thing came in two again. It is impossible to read with much pleasure if one is on the lookout all the time, ready to catch the two halves of one's spectacles on their way from one's nose to the floor. As a result, I spent a miserable weekend, surrounded by books and newspaper that I wished to read. I was almost as helpless as a blind man. I tried to work out a crossword puzzle with the help of a magnifying glass, but I had to give it up in despair. It was quite impossible to read the numbers in the telephone directory. I ultimately found that it was possible to read books I already knew slowly through an eyeglass and turn from the newspapers to Hamlet. A pretty pass, was it not? To which Potter's zeal as a duster had brought me. Okay, so in this para, author tried to read with that mended spectacle, but he found it difficult as he was aware of the bended part of the glass, which is from the middle, and because of pressure or weight, it means spectacles again came in two pieces. So it was impossible for the author to read anything with great pleasure. As a result, he spent a miserable weekend and was helpless like a blind man till he got the new one. So, what are the difficulties he faced in his daily routine? He was surrounded by books and newspaper but was unable to read it. He tried to use magnifying glass to solve the crossword puzzles but was unable to do. He was unable to read even the numbers in the telephone directory. So he found out a temporary solution to read those books to which he already read. In Instead of reading the newspaper in brief, he started reading the heading or the short news of the newspaper. Okay, now come to the third para. This inability to read with the naked eye is one of the curses attached to long sight. As a boy, I was rather vain of my long-sightedness and felt inwardly boastful when I was able to read lettering at a greater distance than anyone else in the company. Little did I know that if one can see things at a long distance in childhood, one is punished by being unable to see things at a short distance in middle age. It is only in the last year or two that I have taken to wearing reading glasses. But I suspect that I ought to have begun wearing them 20 years ago. I was actually sent to an oculist towards the end of the war and ordered to wear spectacles, but nothing came of it. He was a very charming man who kept making me look through various lenses at radiating lines, letters of the alphabet, and so forth, and asking me, "Do you see better now?" Till, weary of saying no, I said yes in order to please him. So, according to this para, it is like curse for the long-sighted people to read with the naked eyes. Long-sighted people means all those people who are unable to see the things closer to them, but they have the capability to see the distant things. So according to the author, in his time, means in middle age, if someone is unable to see the things at a short distance, then they got punishment. And he started wearing reading glasses from the last 1 or 2 years. And he realized that he ought to started wearing it 20 years ago. Author said that he was once sent to an oculist for the checkup, and after some checkups like reading letters of alphabets and looking through various lenses at radiating lines, the author, when asked him whether he is unable to see all those things or unable to see the letters of the alphabets, so instead of saying no, the author, just to please the oculist, he said yes. So come to the next one. Having procured a pair of pince-nez spectacles, I went out into the world with them, and they fell off and were shattered on the pavement. I bought another pair and they fell off and were shattered on the study floor. I bought another pair and they fell off and were shattered on the office stairs. Concluding that the bridge of my nose was ill built for the purpose of wearing pince-nez, I ordered a pair of glasses which could be fastened behind the ears with a sort of wire. I had not worn them for a week when I found that they were tearing my ears to pieces. I put them away in a drawer and discovered that I could read and see as well, if not better, without them. And I never wore glasses again until about 2 years ago. The punishment of long-sightedness kept creeping nearer. However, I complained more frequently of the badness of the electric light. When I read a newspaper, I had to hold it at arm's length. If only I could have stretched my arms a foot or two longer, I should probably have been able to read without spectacles to the present day. My arms would not stretch. However, at last I was compelled to pay a second visit to an oculist. Luckily, he had all kinds of new devices for testing the sight, which made it possible for the patient to tell the truth. As a result, he provided me with a perfect pair of spectacles with tortoise shell rims that wounded neither the nose nor the ears. To see through them was like being born into a new world. A beautiful clear light dwelt upon the printed word, and even the small type of the small type of sporting page became miraculously magnified. In my enthusiasm, I should have liked to put the whole human race into spectacles. Those who do not know what it is to wear spectacles for the first time have missed one of the exquisite pleasure of life. So, when the author started wearing the spectacles, he first bought a pair of pince-nez spectacles. Actually, pince-nez spectacle is a kind of spectacle which had a spring that fits on the bridge of your nose without the support of earpieces. And the author went out into the world with those glasses. And I think it happened with all of us, means with all those people who are wearing glasses. At that time, we can't think in a different way that whether we are able to handle it or not. So, because of mishandling, sometimes our spectacles at that time means the first time when we purchase the our first glass or our first spectacles. So, because of mishandlings, spectacles often fell off and were shattered, and we again have to bought the new pair. Why? Because we are not habitual of such things before, and so we decided to change the glass to which we are able to handle easily. So the same thing happened with the author too. When he started wearing the pince glasses, it often shattered either on the pavement or on the study floor or on office stairs. So he decided to bought a new pair of glass which could be fastened behind the ears with the help of wire. But he can't wear them as it teared his ears, and decided to kept it in the drawer and never wore any of the spectacles again until about 2 years ago. So, as he stopped wearing glasses, his long-sightedness becomes worse. Now, he is unable to read anything which is closer to him. Started complaining about the lights. Now, he had to stretch his arms a foot or two longer to read without spectacles. So he had decided to make a second visit to an oculist, and luckily this oculist had all the advanced technologies, because of which author is unable to tell lie to the oculist, and as a result he got a perfect pair of spectacle for him, and it was like being born into a new world for him, just because now he was able to see everything clearly with the help of glasses. Okay, come to the next para. I experienced this pleasure over again this week when I got back my mended spectacles from the optician. My heart leaped up when I beheld through them something even better than a rainbow. The print of a newspaper For some days, I had been a frustrated man, unable to read comfortably anything but the headlines, compelled to pass the time listening to wireless programs, tempted to go to films that I did not want to see, helpless except in the company of talkative friends. The truth is, a man without spectacles is only half alive. In theory, I suppose a man ought to be able to sit down and think, but I cannot sit down and think unless I have a book in my hand. I do not need to read the book, but I need to know that I could read the book if I wished to do so. If I cannot, I am irritated, feeling cut off, an alien in the civilized world. However, ancestors endured life before the invention of spectacles. I cannot conceive. Potter reduced me to their level for a day or two. So, in the starting, we learned that the author's glasses broken down by an elder person named Potter, and he found difficulty to read with the bandaged spectacles. So, he decided to give that spectacle for repair to the optician, and he get that spectacle after a week, and spending a week without his spectacle is like a hell for him. During this week, he was just like a frustrated man who was compelled to pass his time listening wireless programs, tempted to go to films that he don't wants to see, and had to sit in the company of talkative friends just because he was unable to read anything but the headlines of the newspaper. Author was like a person who was not able to even think anything without having a book in his hand. Not just to read, but with the thought that if he wished to read, he could. But without spectacles, it's quite impossible for him. So, after a week, when he got back his spectacles, he again get the pleasure. Thank you.